Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fix Your BS, the podcast where we dive deep into belief systems that shape our lives and hold us back from achieving our dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Pursley, also known as Dr. G. And in each episode, we explore powerful conversations with successful individuals across business, money, relationships, health, and personal growth. Join us as we unpack their journeys, we challenge limiting beliefs, and discover practical insights to help you build your dream life on your terms. It's time to fix your BS and unlock your full potential. Today, we've got Jeff Greenfield. He's an entrepreneur, an advisor, and a disruptor with 3 decades of strategy, growth, and marketing leadership. He is currently building the next generation of AI-driven attribution as the co-founder and CEO of Provalytics, which is a cookieless attribution and measurement solution, which enables marketers to prove the impact of upper funnel channels like CTV and grow their budgets, which I absolutely love. So I'm excited to dive into this and learn as well as all the listeners are ready to learn. So Jeff, thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure, Dr. G. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm excited too. I love talking to people about AI. It's changing so fast. It is into everything now, all of a sudden. And it just seems like it was announced a year ago, and all of a sudden it's everywhere in everything. So I'm excited to learn about how people like me, who's creating a movement for people to build their lives, how can we utilize it to get in front of the right people and build that funnel, get them the results they're after, but stay in front of them at the same time. So let's dive into number one, how did you get here? And number two, what are steps people can take? So we'll talk about all that stuff as we go.
Well, let's start. You were just talking about AI. I think one of the things for folks is that you're absolutely right. It's moving so fast. And sometimes when things are moving really quickly, people feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to catch up. It's a little too overwhelming. It's too much. I don't even want to jump on. But the reality is that it's moving so fast that it doesn't matter, because what people learned last month, things have already changed so quickly. So you can jump in at any time and get up to date on things and utilize it. You can utilize it in your day to day. I think one of the coolest aspects for ChatGPT is that you can now actually call them and talk to AI and have it answer questions for you. Now, just like any computer, it may be wrong. This is one of the big issues, is that, it's just like talking to a friend who may actually tell you a little bit of a fib, maybe a little BS. And so you have to, you have to double check things, but ChatGPT can definitely be wrong. So it's always, you may get a quick answer, but the coolest thing is that what it's really going to change is that most of us, when we start thinking about searching for something to learn something new, we tend to go to Google. And we used to go to Google for everything. We would go there if we wanted to learn like a new blender or something like that, we would go there. But then Amazon trained us, and they taught us that, hey, if you go to Google and search for a blender, we're going to have an ad, and you're going to click on the ad and come right to Amazon. So save a click and just go to Amazon. So we've all learned now in the US in particular that if we're going to search for a product, we just go to Amazon direct. And now what we're learning is that if I do a search in Google for something, like I think the other day I was searching on how to fix a part of my refrigerator, and I had to search. I did the search, and then I had to scroll through a bunch of things and figure out which one was the right answer. And instead, I just went to ChatGPT, and I have the app on my phone, and I just started talking to it. And it has a voice. You can choose which voice, and it'll just talk back to you. Now, I actually then verified what it was telling me was correct before I made the repair, and everything was fine. So that was good. But the nice thing is that it's being made in such a way that it is wicked user friendly. So that's the nice thing, is that you shouldn't be intimidated in terms of jumping in. You can jump in at any time.
So let's talk about a couple of those things, because that is, you're on the forefront of AI, and you're utilizing it to help people in business build their funnels and drive marketing efforts. And I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about Provalytics. I've watched it on Instagram and heard some things about how you're helping fill funnels and things. So we'll get into that in a second as well. But the concern is okay, well, it's moving really fast. So how does one that is an AI expert keep up to date with what's going on in AI as far as the current trends and things, because it does change so fast?
Well, this is one of the most difficult things as a business leader is to stay focused on your business versus the trends.
Mm.
Because you have to listen to your customers and what your customers' wants and needs are. Most of the time, your customers, when you're running a business, they don't want the latest trend because the latest trend is typically seen as risky and maybe not 100%. And it's tough because, I'm a marketer. I like digging into things and I like playing with things. And every day I have to tell myself, okay, maybe that's a little weekend project to keep me occupied, but that's not for the business. So for the business, you have to keep focused on what your customer needs are. And we use AI in our product to help the speed of things. There's processes in our statistical modeling where previously the process would have to stop, a human being would have to look at it, do an analysis, and then decide what the next step is for a multi-part process. We now use AI in an intelligent way to essentially supervise what was previously a human drawn process. And we've trained the AI specifically to do that. And we don't send the data to like a chatbot typically. Would I like to use AI in other ways? Yeah, I would. But right now, our customers aren't asking for it. But you're right. On the weekends, I do keep up with all this stuff so that when a customer has a need, I start to see, is there a way that we can provide that in a faster, better manner?
Now, you said something in that which I think is it's a common misconception. I hear a lot of my students, people in my groups that I work with, either in the business consulting side or the personal growth side. They kind of use AI. You mentioned Chat GPT. They kind of use it as like a Google search, whereas you just mentioned training the AI. And that's something recently I started doing. I started saying, hey, I want to ask you this question, but before you answer it, ask me 10 to 15 questions to really understand the background or the business that I'm talking about. And I never had contemplated that until maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. So talk to me about training the AI. What do you mean by that? How does that work for people?
Well, the best way for most of us to do that, and I'll use ChatGPT as the example, is that inside of ChatGPT, there's settings where you can tell it about yourself. You can give it background information on your business, and you can also ask it, tell it how you want it to respond. So whenever I'm asking it questions, and this is for like editing things and writing, if you will, I have it come back to me. And whenever it provides me a response, I ask it to rate itself. And so it comes back, it may give me a response where it's editing something and it comes back and says, I rate this an 8.5 out of 10. And then even before I can ask it another question, it'll say, for me to make this a 10 out of 10, I would have to do this and this and this. Do you want me to do that? And it's like, yeah, I mean, I want the best answer. Of course. Why not? But the way I personally use ChatGPT is I use it as almost like a writing editing partner where so it
Mm.
already knows about my business and then I'm in the process of writing and I will give it additional details and give it a previous document, one that I've been editing, and then I'll give it a couple of additional articles that have either been written about us or that we've written, and I ask them to revise it. And then it comes back to me with a revision and I'll read through it and I'll say, well, can you tweak this to say to have this go in more direction? And then of course it keeps rating it. And very quickly, within 10 or 15 minutes, I have the exact document that I'm looking for, which would have normally taken me a half a day. So
And that's not plagiarism or anything, because you're having a conversation and you're just utilizing it almost like a second party. So something that I do is I write music and have done that for a long time. And uh, having somebody else come in and you co-write a song, it's kind of like the same thing. You have a co-author there that is just Chat GPT. I think the biggest thing that, or I should say AI, the biggest thing that I learned utilizing Chat GPT initially was having that conversation as opposed to commands, just barking commands at it. It's saying, hey, well, what if this and what if that? And it's creating these different things. So, how can, let's, I don't know if you'll have an answer to this. If you don't, that's fine. But most people are trying to figure out how they can make money utilizing AI, and that's something that is a hot topic in my groups on the Fix Your BS world. It's how do you make money, or how do you utilize AI to make money online or in your current business?
I think the way to look at this is you need to look at, in particular, ChatGPT. We need to look at ChatGPT as the ability to replace what would normally take you as a person several hours or several days to do. So I don't think we're at the point yet from a money making perspective where you can say, "Oh, I'm gonna have it 3D print things and I'm gonna sell them on eBay," that type of thing. But it's more along the lines of, okay, you have a service that you're doing for customers and they're paying you for that service. I think the first thing you need to come up with is, what is it that you're delivering to people that's of value? Number
Mm.
one. And then you need to find a way, and if that service that you're delivering requires 100% of your time, and there's no way that you could even take and hire 5 people to help you do it, meaning you're being paid strictly for your thought process, well, that's not something that you're going to be able to scale with AI. But if you have a service that you can deliver where it's a scalable type business, where the way you could grow it is you just need more customers and then you could hire more people. And it's the type of business where there's writing involved, or there's something that ChatGPT can do for you, or some other AI bot. Well, that's something that's scalable. And that's something where you can use AI to make money. So it's not so much starting from the point of, I want to make money with AI. It's more of, what is it that people out there want and need that they're willing to spend money on? And then what aspects of that service can I use AI to help give me more time so I can scale it? That's the way I
So,
look at it.
so AI ends up being, hey, how can we get this to market faster? How can we speed up the process so there's less time between the moment I create the thing and then actually deliver it to someone, and that time frame gets smaller so that the financial end result is that you end up making money quicker. Okay, cool.
Or, or that you actually scale it, meaning that you can go from you handling one customer to you handling 50 customers without having to hire 20 people potentially.
So how does one integrate AI into that process? I mean, there seems like there's apps every day coming at that are AI apps, and how do you decipher which ones are the good ones, which ones are the bad ones? Does it go back to who do I trust? I mean, like, you have a program or a product through Provalytics. I mean, is that something that uh, how do you find that? How do you vet those things?
Yeah, so I think that, the way you have to look at it is that when you think about connecting your business or process to AI, the way that that's typically done with computers is through a process called an API. And
Mm.
historically, you would have to write code to connect one process to another. But there's a series of services out there that are kind of an API of APIs, if you will. The most popular one is a company called Zapier. And what that allows you to do is to create at a moment, like at a prompt, like for example, somebody completes a lead form on your website, that you could hook up through Zapier for a series of steps to automatically, if you will, occur. One of those steps could be to go to Chat GPT. What we did at Provalytics is that we build everything in house. We don't have anything that goes outside of our process at all. And like I said, our use of it is limited. It supervises, if you will. But for anyone else, I would use something like a Zapier, because essentially that's a no code way. But again, it really comes down to coming up with what is it that people want and what are they willing to pay for. And if you can come up with that and you can conceive of it, you just have to flow chart it out. And then using something like Zapier, you can connect the dots very easily. You don't have to be a coder, which is great.
Yeah, and I am not a coder. I've used Zapier for a couple of years now, and I know exactly what we're talking about, which um, I think there's a lot of tools that I end up having that I use the surface level of. It's like buying a car and I'm using the radio. I'm just using like one little part of it, and I don't have all the bells and whistles that I could be using. But I agree with you on that. Zapier has been a really great tool in communicating. And I think AI for me has been a process where it speeds up certain activities to where I don't have to think long and hard and go do the research as much. But number two is that it's allowed me to communicate faster um, with more people, just like you just said, which is pretty cool. So tell me about Provalytics. Tell me about what that is, how you came up with it, how people can use it, and what it does for them. I have a good idea, but everybody listening needs to know about this. It's something I've looked into more and more since we've booked this discussion or this interview.
Yeah, it comes down, there's this old concept in marketing and advertising, which is half the money I spend in advertising is wasted. The only problem is I don't know which half. And that's something that has plagued marketers for all eternity. And essentially, folks have just kind of guessed along the way at what's working, what's not working. I mean, if you own a flower shop and you run an ad with coupons and people walk in with the coupons, well, it's pretty simple. The coupons work and keep running it. But in today's digital realm, where a lot of information is delivered digitally through a website and a lot of stuff is sold through there, if all you're doing is advertising on Facebook, it's pretty simple. But once you start to advertise on Google and 4 or 5 other places, when each sale comes in, you don't know where it came from. And that's the problem. Now, if you have a hot product, it's pretty easy. You can throw money out the window and sales will start to come in. Eventually, though, you get to a point where you start spending and your cost for each sale starts to go up. And that's where we reach that point of saturation. And that's a scary thing for a lot of marketers. And so I got into this kind of by accident. Back in the early 2000s, I was actually buying media for one of the larger weight loss companies here in the US. And we had this same problem. We were running across like 5 or 6 different publishers, if you will. And for every sale, all of them said, hey, that's my sale, pay me my commission. And so we had to figure out a way. So I built a platform back in 2008, which became one of the first, what we call attribution platforms. And primarily our focus was very large enterprise clients. So folks like JP Morgan, a lot of the larger banks and pharmaceutical companies used our platform, and I scaled that company up. And I exited there right in 2019, right before the pandemic, and thought I would never go back to measurement. I did 12 years in measurement. It is a marketer. It doesn't seem as sexy as buying ads, but it's pretty cool to be in the middle of things. And then what happened about 2.5 years ago is the internet changed. It became more privacy centric. Cookies changed. There were some iOS updates. And what I had built at my former company was no longer going to work. So I had to create a privacy centric measurement platform. And that's what Provalytics is. And it provides marketers with proof that shows them what's working, what's not working, and it enables them to be able to know where to spend their next dollar and know what they're going to get for it. So that's essentially what the platform does. And what's great is that it provides actionable output. And again, we're working primarily with very larger advertisers, ones that are spending upwards of 10 million or more dollars per year. But the fundamentals behind what we're doing any marketer can do. I don't care if you're spending $500 a month. There's just a couple of shifts of consciousness that marketers have to go through in terms of what they're looking at. And they can kind of use some of our secrets, if you will, to be able to enable to scale their own marketing campaigns.
So what are those shifts? Would you consider those shifts so we can share that out? And maybe even I could use it in our business.
Well, the first is understanding how marketing actually works. The way marketing works is you spend money, you invest dollars for eyeballs because you're trying to reach people. And in marketing lingo, we call those impressions because you're trying to make an impression on someone. And the idea is you're trying to build awareness. And when awareness is built up enough, and remember, awareness building doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes a little while. It takes time. For when you open a nice bottle of wine, it takes time. You gotta let it sit and open up for a little bit. But when awareness is built, people will come into your store. Now, in the internet world, that store is your website, and that translates into clicks. So that's the first thing, is that we buy impressions. Impressions lead to clicks, which lead to sales. Most marketers today are hyper-focused on clicks, 100% on clicks. And they've got a sheet that shows day by day what their cost per click is, what their cost per sale is based on those clicks. And you are too close to the bottom. And what ends up happening is that then when you look at that click to sale ratio and you try to say, oh, I'm going to spend 50% more this month and my sales are going to go up 50%, and it doesn't work and you can't understand why, it's because you're missing the top part, which are
You're talking about the top part of the funnel.
The top part of the funnel, which is impressions, because that's what you actually buy. The result of those impressions are clicks. So that's the first big paradigm shift that marketers need to have, is that you're buying impressions, which are building awareness. And what you need to do on that Google sheet that you have, and most marketers have it, it's got every day of the year for the last 12 months, is go back for 12 months and add in impressions every day. In fact, most people download the reports with impressions, but they just ignore it because we've been trained that clicks are everything. In fact, in Google Analytics, all we see are clicks. And yet here we are on a podcast right now. And podcast advertising is one of the biggest areas. And yet there's nothing to click on a podcast. There's nothing to click on CTV. There's nothing to click on from a billboard that's sold digitally. So there's all this new form of advertising, which is all impression based, and you can't measure it as a click. And so the most important thing is to go back for a year, look at your impressions by day, create a graph of them, and then graph your clicks, and then graph your sales, and compare the clicks to your impressions. And what you will see is that some days when clicks went up, impressions didn't go up, but the impressions may have gone up a week or two before. Now you want to dig into that because that's gold in there. You want to dig into that week, find the particular day, and find out what campaign ran, what messaging was out there, and do more of that because that's what worked. And what happens is that if you're only looking at clicks, you are missing the entire picture. So that's kind of the secret behind what we do, is that we are focused on what marketing actually does, which is build awareness and guide people through a process.
So really, I mean, that makes sense. Back before the internet came around, you really had very few options. You had print advertising, which was like newspaper, magazines. You had radio advertising, you had television advertising, and you had billboard advertising. And that was pretty much as far as putting advertisements out there. You had your, which would be considered more of an in-person advertising, events and, meeting with people. But for the most part, there was those four, and those are all really based on impressions. Like you said, people bring in a coupon, but we looked at doing a billboard not too long ago, and that's what they talk about. You're going to have this many impressions per day or hour or whatever. And that gives you an idea of how many people are seeing it. Now, whether it's effective or not is where you get lower in the funnel. That's where they're actually taking time to purchase it, depending on what the actual content is that you're putting out there. It is confusing for a business owner. I have a few businesses that, and I have a couple partnerships that have businesses as well. And we talk about this stuff a lot because there's so many avenues that you can put out there now that you have to be really, really selective. You have to go, well, who we have to almost define who our end user is even more than we used to, in order to talk specifically to that person, which is, niche down. Is that what you've noticed or what you recommend as well in the marketing world?
Well, back in the day, going back just like you did, when you think about television, we would know our customer and we would buy TV based upon what we knew through research certain age groups would watch. So certain age groups would watch Fantasy Island while others would watch Love Boat. And so we knew the demographics of people that would watch those things. What's different is that back then there were only so many places to get information. Now there's a multitude of places, and really you have to think about who you're trying to sell into. Who is your customer? If your customer lives in the U.S. and they're over the age of 40, whether they're male or female, you have to be on Facebook or Instagram. That's where you have to be. If they're in their 20s, you have to be on TikTok, at least right now, till it's banned or maybe not banned. So that's the thing, is that 20-year-olds are not going on Facebook. They're never going to make it to Facebook. They're not going there. But so you have to think about who is the most important thing is who's the age group that you're going after. And you kind of have to be there, whether you want to be or not. So it's not like, back in the day, it was everything was TV if you were a big brand, but really it was the shows that you were on. Now it's the platform, the app that you're advertising in to get their attention, essentially.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In fact, when social media first came out, I thought I didn't see it as a business tool. I saw it as people posting things that didn't matter or sharing photos with their family, until I started to see that owning businesses went hand in hand with getting customers from social media. You had to be on it.
Right.
Going back to before Facebook had any advertising really, it was all just people sharing things. And then all of a sudden it became, oh, now you have the opportunity to advertise. Same thing with TikTok when it came through, same thing when they purchased Instagram and everything. But the point though is that you're forced into it because that's where the people are. If you want to sell, you got to go where the people are. And I have noticed in my business consulting, so I do personal growth consulting and business consulting. We have programs that combine them, programs that separate them. But in the business consulting side, I've noticed the majority of people throw the proverbial noodles at the wall and see what sticks. And they don't really understand where the sales came from. They just know that, well, we were up this month and here's the things we did, and let's do more of that. What would you recommend as far as analysis for the average business owner, and what tools do you recommend? Obviously, Provalytics is a huge possibility of using that, but what kind of advice would you give for people that own businesses that are looking at their marketing data? What should they use? What should they look at?
They should be looking at, just like we talked about before, how many ad impressions did we have each day? And what was the results that we had from it? And what did we do differently day by day? That's what you should be looking at. Should be measuring it based upon how many impressions were in market. That's the best way to look at it. You shouldn't be looking at clicks. You should be looking at ad impressions. I'll add in as well, for folks that are selling to businesses, you need to be on LinkedIn. If it's a certain type of business. Some businesses aren't on LinkedIn, like plumbers. Not all plumbers are on LinkedIn. So you can't, if you're selling to plumbers, you probably won't find them on LinkedIn, but you probably will find them on Yelp. So you kind of have to you have to go to where your people are. You got to find your tribe, essentially, that you're selling into.
That's so true. Now let's talk about impressions, clicks, sales. All right. So let's say somebody puts an ad out there, and let's say they even helped used AI to help them really formulate what that ad is, and they get it out there, and they have all these impressions, but it didn't convert to clicks or sales. What would be the next thing that you would say?
Well, what I would say is it depends where you put the ad at.
Mm,
Let's say you ran that ad on Meta. Let's say it was on Facebook. Now, if it's the first time you've ever run the ad and you've never run ads on Meta before, and you ran it and it ran, let's say, for 30 days and there was nothing, there wasn't even engagement or anything, I'd say maybe you need to take a step back and look at it and see maybe what's wrong with it, have other people look at it besides yourself. I mean, there's all sorts of stories about sometimes it's not how good the ad looks. You know, the ugly ad sometimes performs so much better than beautiful artwork because we're living in a time where you have to interrupt things. So ugly, unprofessional ads sometimes do incredibly well. But let's say I've advertised before in the past. One of the things by utilizing that impression technique that we talked about is that you can look at that lag time between impressions to clicks to sales. And what you'll notice is that depending upon the channel that you're advertising in, like in this case, Facebook, there may be a time lag of up to like 10 or 15 days. So you have to be prepared for that. But if you go back and do an analysis over your previous year's worth of advertising, that you know then going in, let's say to Facebook, that if you put up a new ad, it's going to be at least 2 weeks. So that means you should probably let it cook for at least a month and be prepared for that because that way you give it a fair shake.
that's so smart, though. You know how important data is. That is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think in today's microwave world, where everybody wants everything now, they think that, and I fell guilty. I fell prey to this too when I first started doing Facebook ads and Instagram ads and TikTok ads and all these things. I expected a result relatively quickly because I just thought I was so unique, or because I wanted to help people so bad that it would just come through in this video. And what I realized is, as I hired mentors myself, they all said the same thing, was what you just said. It was, let the data come through and then analyze the data and see how the result is. Like, are they actually going through the process of impression to click to sale, what the percentage are on each of those things are, to where then you can analyze how did that ad really run. But what you just said, it takes a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even a month sometimes before you really understand that data.
Well, and I think going back using your phrase, the microwave world that we live in,
Mm,
I think that one of the things that's happened is that advertising, as it has become digitized, I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, I can log into Facebook right now and launch a brand new campaign in minutes. And
mm,
then I can then go in 10 minutes later and make changes to it that quickly. And if you go back before the internet, we would do all the research up front, focus groups, come up with what we felt like was the best ad, launch it on TV, radio, and print, and then launch it and go out and have a cocktail and sit back and wait 3 or 4 months.
mm,
Nobody changed things. In fact, even today, to change TV spots in like regular television can take several weeks to get the new spots out to all of them. So, I mean, this idea about changing things so quickly, and this is a battle I face every day with my clients and their different agencies that they deal with. But younger folks think that the job of being a marketer is going in and turning the dials. And I
mm.
tend to tell them, you need to learn to sit on your hands. And
Right.
that's,
You wouldn't know what dials to turn if you don't have the information, if you don't have the data. You got to know
well,
what's actually working through data.
yeah, they end up chasing their tail more
Mm,
times than not because they haven't given it time to sink in. And remember, there's an emotional aspect to advertising, with the colors and the feeling. Luckily, now we're starting to get more ads that are evoking a little bit more emotion. But that's the best way that you get people to remember you, is to have something that is like, oh wow, bring someone. It's pretty impressive when a marketer can bring a tear to someone's eye very quickly in like 10 or 15 seconds. Those are the types of ads that get remembered and really do a wonderful job for the marketers. And the old style ads used to do that years ago. Now everyone seems to be trying to simulating these 6-second TikTok ads, because that's going back to what we talked about earlier. That's the trend. But that trend isn't doing anyone any favors at all.
And I really love what you said there. Focus on the business versus the trend, what customers really need, what their needs are, and figuring out what that is and then providing them. I know one of the mentors that I have, Alex Hormozy, talks about, figure out what you believe, how you can help someone, your customer, do it for free for a period of time, which gives you valuable feedback, but it also lets you understand whether it's something that they actually want and you're able to help them. And then over time, you can start charging. But I think so many people jump into, well, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to sell people immediately, and there's no proof, there's no success stories, there's no social proof, and so they end up burning a lot of time and energy. And I know, because I fell into that trap. Any final thoughts that you would say as far as the things that you've learned over time, and how you're using AI and market in the marketing world? Anything that you would tell people that are listening to this that would help them in any way, shape, or form? Anything that pops up to your mind?
What I would say is, I would say to devote like an hour or two every weekend to start playing with ChatGPT
Mm.
and seeing what it's capable of. I would also say to check out some of the other ones as well. Stanford just this week announced, I can't remember the name of it at the moment, they announced that they came up with their own bot that's available for free, that will write articles for you that are all indexed. It'll have all the proper links to all the research articles and everything like that. And what I would say is every weekend, just, you have to invest in your own education. No one's going to spoon feed this to you. The nice thing is that you don't have to take a class on this stuff. Just start being a consumer of it. Just start playing with it. And once you put in the time, you'll start to realize, okay, I think I can save some time here and there. And, you save an hour to 2 hours a week. Eventually that adds up to a couple hours a day. And before you know it, you've replaced potentially one of the jobs that you have to do every week. And that gives you more time to be of service for your customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. And I really appreciate the insight. So many people misunderstand, especially in business, they misunderstand marketing. They hire marketing agencies. The marketing agencies aren't really looking out for them, or they're just throwing money out there. And if you don't at least understand a little bit about the data, enough that you can speak to the marketing agency and speak to the people that you're getting information from, you can't just rely on someone else to do the job and figure it out for you, because they're not going to do as good of a job if you're not paying attention. If you're paying attention, it's amazing how much more they pay attention. That's a huge, huge point. So thanks, Jeff, for being here. I really appreciate it. Everybody, click on the links below. You can check all Jeff's information out, his websites, his social media. Hook up with him, see what he's doing with Provalytics, see what he's doing in the marketing world and the AI world. I agree. Invest some time, play around with ChatGPT, play around with some of the AI, and you'd be surprised what you're going to be able to come up with. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Fix Your BS, where I really hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration to challenge your own belief systems. If you're ready to take the next step and join the Fix Your BS community, which is dedicated to your personal transformation, check out my coaching group by clicking the link below in the description, where we'll work together to turn your dreams into reality. Remember, the only thing standing between you and your goals is your beliefs and your actions. So let's fix them. Until next time, keep believing in yourself. I'm Dr. G with Fix Your BS.